It's another wonderful Sunday afternoon. Welcome to Rubbin Minds. I'm Osato Edokbayi, reaching you during a period of intense conversations around the country, from politics to elections to family feud-driven entertainment drama. There is a lot to get through today on the show. For example, the Osun governorship election is more than a contest for the government house in Osogbo, coming less than a year before the 2027 general election. It offers Nigeria an opportunity to assess the strength of our electoral institutions, the preparedness of political parties, the effectiveness of election technology, and importantly, whether voters can have confidence that their votes will count. The stakes are particularly high. The contest pits the incumbent, Governor Ademola Adeleke, against APC candidate Bola Oyebamiji and other candidates, while the PDP and Labour Party are notably absent from INEC's final list of candidates. But the bigger question goes beyond who wins the election, actually. What will Osun tell us about 2027? Will INEC demonstrate that it can conduct an election that is transparent, credible, and technically sound? Can technology, particularly electronic transmission and result management, withstand political pressure and operational challenges? Will security agencies remain neutral and professional? And can political parties compete without violence, intimidation, vote buying, and the weaponization of state power? Joining us today is a lawyer, Justice Ojeno. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you, Sato, and good afternoon to all our viewers all across the world. It's my pleasure.
It's very good to have you here. It's interesting that we have this off-cycle election just about 5 months to the general elections. If you were to gauge the temperature of things right now, what would you be reading?
Okay, I'm not in Osun State, but from my vantage point, maybe because of where I am and because of my profession, I've heard that there is so much hotness in that part of Nigeria, and of course, legitimately so. Contest for power is usually not as civil in other parts of Nigeria, but much more particularly so in Osun State. If we go back down memory street, we'll see that the penultimate election was very, very hot, and it was a runoff that was used to maybe steal the election from Mr. Adeleke at the time. And of course, the last one was beyond reasonable doubt. People are using criminal standards of assessing who won. Maybe that was why it could not have been stolen from him. So, and this again is a contest of, I just pray they don't bring Scott Earth kind of contest into this and destroy the state in the wake of political contestations for power. I just pray that as much as possible, the best man in this case is allowed to win. I don't have any dog in the fight. I just pray that whoever it is that emerges as a result of the legitimate votes of the Osun State people should be allowed to carry the day without anybody thumping the scale in any way.
So now, if you look at the situation in Osun State, and you rightfully judged the temperature there, and you took us back in time, but also taking you back in time, there were some local government elections in between that period as well, and we didn't quite like what we saw. There was political violence as a result, and you can still see that the rhetoric in this situation hasn't been pretty. What is the gauge on that? How will you say we need to get security agencies on top of the situation? How prepared do you think they are? And what is the impact for the general election?
Okay, I even think that beyond just local government elections, there were also a number of by-elections. And of course, there were state gubernatorial elections that have actually held under Mr. Joash Amopiton. And we cannot use a number of those elections as the yardstick to prove that, okay, will INEC do right by the Nigerian people? And I particularly point to the Anambra election and I think Ekiti State election, because it was very, very clear that the incumbents were very strong and they had some level of unanimity amongst the electorates, and it was a safe seat and safe election, essentially, in a manner of speaking, for them, with due respect to every other persons that contested with them in the elections. But the one that really, really would have shown how possible the 2027 elections that have gone was the area council elections in Abuja, the FCT. And the jury is out on that election, and the verdict of the jury is that it was not so much a credible election. And of course, the politician, the Wike, he declared a curfew. He practically ensured that a lot didn't go well with that election. And with INEC too, there is nothing that proves to how credible they were too. So I pray that the eventual result of the Osun State election will also not be tainted by such accusations. And of course, there's no election that is perfect. The 2020 election in the United States is still being contested in a way, and it forms one of the first questions that the legislators will always ask, whether it's the Senate or the House of, the equivalent of the House of Reps. They will ask members of the Trump government, do you believe that we are in 2026? So it doesn't mean that there will not be people who will say that, oh, the election was not credible.
Let's look at the playing field.
Okay.
Now, because earlier when I was introducing the segment, I mentioned that a couple of political parties were absent from the ballot.
Okay.
The PDP, the Labour Party, don't have dogs in the fight, if you
like.
How significant is their absence in the grand scheme of things?
I think it is very, very significant. It's a shame. If we are saying we are practicing multi-party system, we should have viable political parties. The life that Accord has in Osun State is practically breathed into it, of course, like God in creation breathed into clay and became a human being. It's breathed into it by the present governor. Remove the governor from the scheme of things. With due respect, again, to everybody in Accord party, it's not exactly a viable party. So I would have loved it. At least, we can say the PDP, even though they were very, very arrogant, to say that in the next half a century, they will last forever, essentially. And, of course, they caved in like it's a sand dune with the slightest resistance. Of course, the machinations of the present president and his cohort. But to an extent, it has become an institution, the PDP. Unfortunately, the greed of the people that are running it actually made it become essentially comatose. I always describe the situation of PDP as stage 4 cancer. It is irredeemable. The Labour Party too has started rising only for them to be dealing with so much infighting, wrangling. A lot of people amongst them were buyable, they were for sale. And so they sold the soul of the party to the point, to the detriment, significant detriment, and ashamedly so, of the democracy or the robustness of the democracy of Nigerians. I feel very, very pained that they are not in, and the democracy of its in, but for the power being summoned by the governor Adeleke, I do not even think there will be a contestation against the APC, which is the machination of the APC presidency from day one to take all 36 states for themselves.
You know, thank you for that point. But I want to bring your mind to something that has been a recurring theme in all the elections that have happened over the last few years in this country, and that's voter apathy, right? People don't show up. The numbers compared to registered voters who show up on election day is ridiculously low, to be honest.
Ridiculously
and there are many factors for that. Some people obviously don't trust in electoral institutions, but even that is the fear of political violence. And I really want to harp on that because people, especially leading up to the general elections in 2027, they're in January, they're just over 5 months away, people are scared. People are concerned for their safety, what will happen. As you've mentioned, a lot of people who go into these contestations are desperate for power.
Absolutely.
And so on. What is the significance of that? And how can we turn around the tide against voter apathy?
Oh, it's going to be hard if we are not using our tongue to count to counter it. If we are to frontally talk about it, it's going to be a very, very difficult one because all institutions of state that are supposed to encourage it have actually failed. They've dropped the bag largely. And by that, I pointedly point to, no pun intended, the security agencies, the prosecution agencies. When a thug, in a manner of speaking, comes out and says, in a state like Lagos, that if a number of persons do not vote in a particular direction, that they will be dealt with severely. What happens? What was the Attorney General of Lagos State, for example, doing? Is that not intimidation? Is that not voter intimidation enough for someone to have been prosecuted in order to show deterrence to any set of persons who might be interested in towing that kind of line? What of security agencies? What are they doing to protect elections? They too, they are being bought off. Why do we have a situation where during elections we are having shopping for the particular commissioners of police for various states? Is that not showing you that these people, to a large extent, will not allow this to work? Should we now talk about INEC? Should we talk about the commissioners for INEC? Did you see the Edo State election? The last Edo State election and the kind of hula baloo that happened between who should be commissioner and how partisan an electoral commissioner should be? How many should we talk about? It is all a shame. And for a person in Nigeria, the average Nigerian, to say, oh, they want to still participate in spite and despite all these unsurmountable mountains that are put before the Nigerian people when it comes to exercising their franchise, you must really, really commend them. I commend them for coming out in their droves in 2023 and their participation before 2023. And I pray that they also surmount that level of courage to ensure that at least we do not let these politicians have their way. We don't throw our governments, we don't give them. Now they are succeeding themselves. Check, they are putting their children every single way, all of them.
And I just want to harp on the point you made earlier about thugs threatening certain people during elections and so on, and the conversation around certain what should be pressure groups, for example, like the National Union of Road Transport Workers. Now some members are allegedly sided with certain political parties and certain political interests. What does that portend for the general election and the general state of things, really?
Okay,
things like that happen.
I feel that is a shame. Normally a trade union, but if you check their charter, in a manner of speaking, they are not supposed to, just like civil servants, they are not supposed to pitch their tents with any political parties, because the membership of the trade union generally will be from all political parties. Indeed. In a manner of speaking. And of course, a political party can pitch and make arguments to a union, for example, and tell them, oh, your members will get this, your members will get that, if you support us. And of course, it happens everywhere. It happens in the US and all too. And of course, when that happens, they will support, in a manner of speaking, but their support cannot go beyond the borders of just endorsing the political parties. These ones are going way beyond endorsing. They are practically beating up people at the polls. There's still a woman that has a bandage, whose picture still rings in my head, that has a bandage on her head in the past election and on the past election day. So when a trade union goes beyond that, starts beating up people, starts threatening the people in those unions that are the minds, controlling minds of such unions, should be prosecuted in order for that to stop. Because as it is, they are killing our democracy. And they, of course, they don't know that they are playing with fire. Because if this democracy goes, they will also have to go with it.
Justice, we are getting into an interesting territory here, especially with what's going on in Osun and how, like I mentioned earlier, how close this off-cycle election is to general elections. Do you believe that it is indeed a litmus test for what's going to happen in 2027?
Absolutely. Just like it was in 2023. Just like exactly as it was in 2023. One part that, as a legal practitioner, I was really, really affected by and I was scared for in the 2023 election was the decision of the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal in the 2022 Osun election. And the decision of the court eventually in 2023 was what also affected the Peter Obi and the Tinubu article litigation. Because in that case, one soft strand that most Nigerians were not really, they didn't really avert their minds to was that in that election, the court actually said that expert witnesses are no longer needed. The way to prove who won an election at a polling unit is for you to tender the beavers machine. It was decided in that case. It was decided in that case. Before then, you could have just brought an expert witness over that analyze all the elections and all. Just bring one or two, examine them, cross-examine them, re-examine them if there is need for it. But that wasn't done. And this time, you now needed to bring beavers from every polling unit where you are contesting. We had more than 170-something thousand polling units in the last election. Just imagine that you are contesting 10% of it. It means you have to practically examine, cross-examine, re-examine 17,000 either witnesses or at least experts that dealt with such machines. And given the time frame for elections, it is practically humanly impossible. When I saw that decision, I was already scared for the litigation that was going to come, which eventually came, and unfortunately came. It looked to me like, oh, the president saw that, oh, let Osun lose so that we'll be able to win. Because we must remember that the president, beyond loving Lagos State the way he loves it, the rumor has it that he's also from Osun State. He has some solid affiliation, maybe whether maternal or paternal, to Osun State. So Osun State is clearly there to his mind. So the significance is practically almost unsurmountable when it came to that decision. And of course, how security behaves in this election will also determine how they will behave in the 2027 election. And I say this because, well, I'm very happy that at least the Inspector General of Police has been to Osun State to say that, to allay the affairs and say that they are for credible elections and they arrested some APC thugs. I just pray that the trajectory continues that way. Let it not be seen that the powers that be use all necessity to actually wrestle power from the present governor in Osun State. Let it be clear that it was not stolen, so that Nigerians should have some more level of confidence in the forthcoming 2027 election.
And you know, when you mentioned beavers, there all sorts of things went up in my head because we had the conversations about the electoral law and amendments, and like you mentioned, all the court cases that have been going on. Tell me an electronic transmission and what that means now for the average voter. Right, it's tough to keep track of all these conversations.
It is humongous.
The language is too sometimes you don't understand what's going on. We don't have the legal training. We don't know all that you do in this case. Make it simple for us. What has changed?
Let me make it as simple as possible. Yes. This time it's optional for the electoral umpire or its representatives, the polling officers at the polling units. They have the option of transmitting it. Of course, they can come up with one excuse or the other, and that's what essentially changed, not from the previous law, but from the proposed law that almost scaled through until these people saw that, oh, they were going to lose en masse, and they decided to practically change the course of events and change the course of the law. And we must also note that on the polling unit issue, essentially, what the polling officer says is what the result is essentially what the result is. And we must also still go back beyond the Electoral Act. We must go back to the presumption of regularity provisions of our Evidence Act. And those are some of the things that some of us have been saying, that there must be a cutout for electoral matters. We cannot just say because INEC said this is the number, then the court will now presume that they are regular, that it is correct. The INEC must be made a neutral party. They cannot be given so much power to the point where it is now easy and casual for anybody to say, go to court, because they know that because the presumption is already in favor of the result given by INEC, it's going to be practically impossible. It's going to be like the task of Sisyphus to upturn whatever decision they went to court.
Indeed, and this is where I want us to get into how, despite all these things, people need to go to the polls. People need to vote in their numbers. How important is it that we galvanize people to the polls ahead of 2027?
It is of extreme importance. We can't let these people carry the day. Just like I was broaching earlier, they are already succeeding themselves. For a lot of them, whose children, they have started finishing law school, they've started going to their 20s and 30s. They started putting them in the House of Representatives, putting them to head one agency or another. We cannot it is not their commonwealth. It is our entire commonwealth. It is not their right. We must fight for it. We must ensure that at no point will they let our apathy get to the point where we will now practically resign all our faith, all our destiny, all our commonwealth to this set of, I call them bandits. They are political bandits, because whatever it is that those other people are doing with terrorism, our politicians are even doing way worse. Because if they are not doing way worse, why is this country still like this? On all fours, just mentioning economy, security, and all. We are practically tanked as a nation. Our passport is losing its relevance every single day as we speak. So we cannot resign completely to them, because that is exactly what they want. They want to ensure that they push us down and down to the point where, because of apathy, we practically resign everything to them.
Justice, thank you very much. The passion is very obvious, and that's because the stakes for the elections are very high. It's important that we all ensure that we vote when the elections come in January. And I hope that everyone has their PVC at this point, because no more CVR. It'll be a shame if you didn't get it or get the process done. But Rubbin Minds returns after this. Yo, welcome back to Rubbin Minds. And now we're going to change gears and perhaps share some secrets to how you can build a successful business. Because building a business can be a lonely experience, especially for young entrepreneurs who are trying to figure things out while dealing with the everyday challenges of running a business. I mean, beyond funding and having a good business idea, the people entrepreneurs meet, learn from, and build relationships with can play a major role in their growth. And this conversation will explore the importance of creating safe spaces where founders and entrepreneurs can openly discuss the challenges of building businesses, share experiences, learn from one another, and find opportunities for a collaboration. We'll also look at how meaningful networking goes beyond just exchanging contacts at events, and how the right relationships and communities can open doors to new partnerships, customers, mentorship, career opportunities, and business growth. We'll also look at the role of networking events and experiences in bringing entrepreneurs together, and whether these spaces are actually helping young business owners navigate the realities of entrepreneurship. Well, joining me now to look at the power of networking and how connections can drive entrepreneurial growth, Seyi Olaniyan is here. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's very good to have you here, man.
Thank you.
I mean, I also know that you run other businesses. How's business these days?
I mean, I had to just, seize that breath. I can say that, yeah, of course, it's amazing, but of course, we're currently in a phase where things seem to be, pretty shaky. But of course, you have to nonetheless be optimistic regardless of the storm. So it's been...
And that's the importance of this conversation, because when entrepreneurs start business and they go through these sort of shaky periods now, who are they speaking to? Where are the spaces for them to talk about challenges that they're facing?
So, I mean, I always say it. I think entrepreneurs are like firstborns. They bottle up a lot of things inside them, and because they feel like they are more solution-driven, and they always think of what's the first thing I need to do or think about, so they like to solve the problem by themselves. They like to bottle up some of the problems and think that they can be the Spider-Man of their, of themselves. And sometimes, it's always very overwhelming when you don't have space where you can go to share with and run to. Because, I mean, there's a saying, a problem shared, problem solved. Not all problems shared anyways, but sometimes it helps you it makes you lighter, because, you're able to, speak to people that are going through what you're going through, that they have gone through what you are going through, and you're able to see different POVs on how they manage how they manage the situation that they probably were in or they are in. And you are seeing that, okay, if you have done it this way, if you are doing it this way, it will make sense for you to actually make a better decision on that things that you're going through. So, basically, I think it's also very important that founders understand that aside from, being the tough man from the right spot, there are communities, there are spaces, there are places where you have to be that are very essential for your well-being. I always say that, and one of the events that we do, which I always say is like a therapeutic session, for people, for your founders, that are creating business in this current economy, because business in last 10 years and business now, there are two different phases because you are facing a lot of factors, from hiring to the economy change, so many things that are probably just fighting you, here and there. And it's also very important for founders to be able to, collaborate with each other and be able to also share problems with each other so they can equally solve it together.
So a lot of young people are founding businesses now. A lot of bright young people have great ideas, they get funding, they go into the world of business, and they find that it's cutthroat. You mentioned all the economic factors that might work against them, or it might even work in their favor. Just give me a bit of a rundown. What are like 2 or 3 common issues you hear a lot of young people who are starting businesses encounter lately?
So first, of course, which is the key, the hiring, people management. I think that's one of the major thing everybody go through.
Are we blaming Gen Zs for this?
I don't want to start. I think if I start on that, we are not going to end this conversation. But I think essentially, to be very honest, I think it has to deal with, again, it comes back to the current, the revolution of how will I explain it now? The revolution of the current hiring phase,
yes.
Of course, from Gen Z to millennial, and different attitudes towards work. And largely, I think it all boils down to different organizations and different strategy and to which they are trying to navigate their day-to-day activities. But aside from people's management, of course, cash flow, because essentially, when you solve people's management, which I believe even the biggest organization up to date are still figuring it out, you are, making sure that you are very realistic with yourself with cash flow. Don't be swerving the revenue. Be more intentional about what's the profit. With none of these millions of naira that you're generating for your business, what is the company holding on to that is your money, not just, the actual revenue. And I think those are the two, I believe those are the two key, when you solve the people, because you need an actual key members for your team to actually make the team even make money.
Yeah.
Now, when you have those key people that have the right attitude for the company to succeed and take it to where they can take it to, then you actually need to be very, very, very stern with your income, which is very important, and not be swerving the revenue and the numbers, because it's very easy for founders, especially young ones, to say, oh, we made 1 billion naira 1 billion this year, and the take home may be lesser than 50 million.
They get carried away. Indeed. And to the point of young people getting into business, we see a trend now. People get into paid employment for some reason, and then they say, look, it's not for me. I'm tired of working for somebody else. I too can become my own boss. Why do you think that trend is picking up fast? And when they get into the world of business, how they go about things is, like you mentioned, is vastly different from what things were 10 years ago. Can you highlight some of those differences?
I always say, I spoke at an event a couple of days back, and I said, I always advise anyone that wants to go into business to serve with people, rather, try to work in an organization to have an idea of how does this work? Is this something that I will love to do, or am I just doing it because I'm bored, or at every slightest inconvenience, which everybody is going to now? Almost everyone are content creators and influencers. Again, I don't have anything against them, but I think it is out of laziness and out of, how will I explain it now? Yeah, I will call it laziness, and I will say why. When a small challenge, you are given a task, whatever task it may be, and you could not challenge yourself to get it done. Now, that's the slightest inconvenience for you. And you just feel like, I don't think this is my pace, my place. I don't think this is for me. I don't think this is for me. The next thing you start doing, you carry a phone, a camera, and light. You turn yourself to a creator. Now, how many creators are we going to start producing if we stop producing our chap without do the job? Because who will now eventually be your clients in the future if there are not people that are working in those organizations to make sure that you as a content creator have what's it called, brief that you're going to work on to give you money. And it's alarming, because the number of people that is more like dropouts from school. The number of people that drop out from an actual employment just because you can easily grow numbers on TikTok, on Twitter, and when you have a proper conversation with them one-on-one, you realize they're not as smart as you thought they are. And it's because they are not sound, because they are not, they are hindering themselves from the process to become the matured, how would I, talent that they ought to be. So rather than that, they hinder themselves from that opportunity to learn, to groom themselves, to mature, to become that person they are supposed to be. So when they go into the world to manifest, you have the capability to explore.
And I also understand that you hinted at this earlier, that there are spaces that you've created to help people come together and have all these conversations about it. I believe it's called Founders Rant.
Yeah.
I like the name because it means people
just come around. It's like I always say like a therapeutic room. It's a place where you just come. I remember the first edition we had a founder that was crying. Like everybody had to be hugging him.
It's that deep?
Yes, it was that deep. We're just like, just come, come and take hug. And it was because, again, like I said, founders, people see the facade of, oh my God, you're driving this car, you look this good, you're making money, but they forget the sacrifice that comes with it. A lot of founders are dealing with probably health issues, sacrifice their family. It's a long-term game. They have been working for the past 20 years, and you think that, oh, this person has this money, but it's playing a long-term game. So it's a space. Of course, it's from my own understanding, because while I was in university, I attended a lot of conferences a lot, and I realized that even when I became a business person, which is a founder, there's no particular room, there's no space where you can easily be you. You can rant, you can meet with people that are going through what you have gone through, or that are going through what you're going through, to tell them the problems you're facing. And we have a lot of smart founders that they don't have the opportunity to be able to express their how will I explain it, their situations to people that are going through what they're going to, be able to learn from them and to be able to even feel light. Because when you are holding on a lot of things, you feel so heavy. You don't know how to navigate things.
And it may even affect decision making.
Exactly. So that's basically why we created, and it affects decision making, you're right. And that's why we created this space, for people to be able to say, you know what, let me come in here. While I'm networking, I'm also here to be able to share my problems. Okay. I don't know who's going to solve it, but I know that at least let me share it first, then solution will come afterwards.
Excellent. And I wish you all the success with Founders Rant, media and brand strategist Seyi Olaniyan. Thank you for coming on Rubbin Minds this afternoon. We've got more on Rubbin Minds for you today. We'll be back.
It was secreted to all the accounts. The newspapers published it. Look at it. It's in Punch, Tribune, Vanguard. All of them published it. He was making a U-turn. Okay. I am a secretary to the account. But what is he doing with it here again on social media? Tell me, is this person normal? You tell me. Please, let's continue watching.
Next thing, everyone demanded they wanted the back end. I persuaded Jude to give it to me. He now said it's going to take 3.5 months. I started feeling somehow. If I tell you to give me your statement of account, few minutes, even with your app, you bring it. Tell me 3.5 months. So that's how long it will take. I still play ignorant. Waited for the 3.5 months. Walked up to him after 3.5 months. We kept on doing like this. I walked up to Paul. Paul, what is going on? Say, Peter, don't tell you, I don't know anything about this. This is what you talk about.
And the Oscar goes to the chief manipulator. He said, I told him that it's going to take 3.5 months to send the catalog. Please watch. On the 16th of October 2022, Peter called me that he wanted Square Records catalog, back ends, and accounting, which I called Lex Record to make provision for. And he sent it to me later in the evening and said, hi bro, royalty statement, we can provide logs on request. I forwarded this to Peter, which shows exactly the amounts of money as an accounting from Q3 2012 all the way to Q2 2022 in question. So he now called me back to say, no, what they are asking for is not accounting, but the back ends that will show the streamings and whatever that they needed to see. And he told you people that it took 3.5 months after doing like this to send it to him. Abi, please watch. So, as you can see, 6 days later, on the 22nd of October, I called Peter to tell him that I have received the back ends. He now said, I beg, send that P-Square report to booking at psquare.word.com, 22nd October 2022. So, as you can see, the logs was sent to booking at psquareword.com on the same date of 22nd October 2022. And if you come up here, you will see it shows that it was downloaded on the same day, 22nd October 2022.
Well, at the start of the show, I did tell you about family feud-driven entertainment drama on Rubbin Minds today, and that was a bit of what we've been experiencing as a country through the week. You're welcome back to the show. And of course, the renewed public conversation around P-Square has once again brought questions about money, ownership, royalties, management, and the business structures behind successful music partnerships to the forefront, rather than focusing on personal disagreements, though, between the Okoye brothers, or attempting to determine who's right or who's wrong. What we'll do this afternoon is use the situation as a starting point to examine the broader business of music in the country. How is a successful song actually monetized? Who owns the music? Who owns the recording? How are royalties shared between artists, songwriters, producers, publishers, labels, and other rights holders? What happens when artists are also business partners, family members, or members of a group? For an industry that has grown into one of Nigeria's most significant creative exports, there is still considerable confusion among artists and the public about intellectual property, publishing, masters, royalties, contracts, and revenue sharing. And what we'll do is bring in qualified people, entertainment lawyers and music industry professionals together to break down the business of music in as simple terms as they possibly can. And the aim today is not to dissect P-Square's private affairs, but to use a situation that Nigerians are already discussing to help us all understand how the music business should work and what artists need to know before their music becomes successful. Joining us on Rubbin Minds this afternoon, we have Mojonyo Oluwa Adekunle, a legal and business strategist in studio. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Very good to have you here. Tokbe Salami, joining us virtually. He's an entertainment lawyer, I believe. Good afternoon to you.
Hi, good afternoon. How's it going?
Very well, thank you. First of all, I just want to ask both of you, have you been able to catch your breath this week?
Absolutely. I mean, this happens more often than not. So
Really?
it's not that uncommon.
Okay.
Actually.
What about you, Tokbe?
Well, I would never lose my breath. I catch it.
I mean, fair enough. Listen, there's a lot to get into here, but you both have legal backgrounds, which is very important. What I want to know is, as we've seen in what was played earlier, a lot of documents were made public, things that we probably should never see, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think, and I understand the EFCC has gotten involved in this case before, we understand there have been cases in court, are any of the things that have been shared publicly prejudicial to ongoing cases, do you think?
It really, so far, not everything has been, they've been referring to documents, they've not necessarily published, so to speak. But so far, depending on where the investigations are, usually with investigations, if they are already in court documents are public documents. But if they are still in an investigation, these documents should not be peddled on social media as it is. They should not be litigating this on social media, actually, not yet.
Not in the court of public opinion.
Not yet.
If you like. So, talk about in the P-Square situation, Peter made several claims about how money, royalties, and so on were handled. Without deciding who was right or wrong, really, what immediately stands out to you from a corporate governance perspective?
It's the need for structure. And aside from structure, it also goes to the need to understand, the essence of the business and the need for the business to be properly regulated, not by outsiders, but by experts, yeah? And when it comes to, corporate governance, particularly with regards to the creative industry, we are still, struggling. Of course, some of us have been advocating for higher and better, laws, regulations, guidelines, as the case may be. And definitely we would always do that until, we achieve the aim. And the aim is to have a sustainable, creative industry. But left to me, the P Square, the P Square saga, let me use the word saga, is just an indictment into the weakness of our corporate governance. Thank you.
Let's start from even the basics. So three people go into a successful music business together. What should the legal and perhaps financial structure even look like from day one?
Primarily, to start a business, you should have, in this case where you have several parties,
yes, and
at this scale, you should have a limited liability company at the bare minimum. And what that will look like is that, what that does is everybody has, the entity sort of separates everybody's equity. You know who owns what and who has what. You understand what your roles are. And typically, once you register, that's just the first thing. Then you have documentation that speaks to what your relationship should be like. What are the expectations? How much am I bringing into this? How much are you bringing into this? What is expected of you? In the event that we want to split, what happens to what we have? How much? When do we start collecting money from this business? How do we resolve issues? Who has the rights to do what? So that's at the registration level, yes, and then the documentation level, yes. With regards to the creative business, it's a bit of a different peculiar situation, because there's the business entity and then there's the IP entity as well. Typically, people model that up together. Yeah. And usually it's not very advisable, it's not the best practices. So usually there's the day-to-day running of, say, somebody that is booking the day-to-day running of the label or whichever business entity you decide to register. There's the booking of the shows, there's the day-to-day run, and then there is the IP entity entirely. There are two separate things that should be separated with documentation. So, of course, that level of detail in registering, documentation, and dividing what needs to be divided and not lumping it all together is very, very important, at the bare minimum, at least.
So we're using the P-Square situation as just as an example, as a backdrop for all of these conversations, because for the average Nigerian, all these terms can be confusing. We're not music business insiders like you are. And I want to say, so we've heard accusations from Peter or Mr. P accusing Jude of taking a certain percentage. And then the question is, well, wasn't that agreed in a contract? Why is it now any of our businesses? What is the right thing here?
So typically at the beginning, they should have had either a partnership agreement or a shareholder agreement that speaks to who gets what and what percentage it is. Yes, in the registration, we see that somebody has this percent of shares and all of that, but that does not, we still need to bring it to the granular level of detail as to what is expected and who owns what and who has the power to manage finances. And aside from even that, the accounting structures also need to be in place. One person cannot unilaterally have the power to spend money and decide, oh, you take this, you take that. Typically, everybody should have access to accounts. It's the directors and shareholders' right to have periodical access to financial accounting, as well in music business, of course. They should have access to streaming logs and details, everything. The primary thing here is transparency. And then with regards to accounting, there also ought to be an independent party who is able to manage your accounts. There should be audits, periodic audits, from time to time. So it's not oh, I'm doing this, I'm hiding it. No, it's open to all, because they are all shareholders and directors in an organization, and that transparency should be the most key thing.
It's a great point that you've made, because we've seen that there have been deviations in certain cases that have been made public. And Tokpa, I just want to follow up with you on this. Per what we've just heard, is it a crime then if these things are not revealed to all parties? What exactly are the legal implications of these sorts of things?
I mean, so far you guys are in business together, it's just natural that everything revealable is revealed, yeah? That is the essence of business. That is the essence of partnership, and of course, that is the yardstick to measuring or to measurement, to measuring growth, as the case may be. So, for me, if Mr. A is saying, "Oh, why is it that he's just finding out, right now? Why is it that he's just getting this document right now?" Meaning that if he never spoke, he might or he would not have gotten it. Yeah, it is a grave indictment into the entire system, into the entire business, into the entire structure, and of course, it also comes to the question of the knowledge of all the parties in the contract, all the parties in the partnership. Trust me, you cannot give what you don't have. Once you know that, okay, there is a possibility of that knowledge gap, all you need to do is just to seek for help by speaking to professionals, whether professionals will come in as consultants or they'll come in on a day-to-day basis. But still, it's an indictment, not just in the structure alone, but of course in that principle of knowledge as well. Thank you.
And Tokwe makes a really good point about how it's an indictment on what currently exists. And when I asked you both if any of this was surprising to you, you both said, no, this is a regular Sunday for us, to be honest. And that's where I want to take this conversation to, because it appears that the knowledge gap that exists when creatives go into the business of their creative endeavors is still quite wide. What are music industry insiders and music industry execs doing to close that gap and ensure that people, as best as can be, are fairly treated?
Well, to be honest, in the past decade, information has been a lot. There's been more symposiums that talk about these things. There's been more access to information. I mean, you have AI. All you need to do really is just to type in there, and and I also think that one of the challenges that we have is people do not think is necessary. A lot of creatives don't exactly see themselves as business entities just yet. They are still thinking about, oh, I'm a creative, I do music, but you're doing a business. There is the business of music that you also need to be abreast with. If you want to do this, you need to understand both the creative aspect of it and the business of it. And I think that's something that a lot of creatives need to also try to educate themselves. You can go online and do a course. You can get professionals, as Tope said. You could engage a lawyer. You could engage an accountant. You could even just there are a lot of these business courses you could quickly take that can just help you have context to the business of your craft. So there are two different things. And if you don't understand the business, you are probably here for pro bono, just do free music and move on.
And that's interesting because, I will get back to the question of percentages in just a bit, but you've also raised a very important point here. But I do want to say this. We've seen the accusations that Mr. P said about his elder brother, Jude, yes, taking a certain percentage, I think it was like 40% or something like of that nature. You have mentioned about the importance of contracts and setting these things from scratch, but obviously certain steps might have been missed in this particular case. How then can we fix that particular kind of situation? Is it right to abrogate yourself a certain level of percentage and then settle it in-house because we're all family members?
Oh, no. Oh, no. So, yes, they didn't have contracts in the beginning. And the next best time to have thought about putting that in writing was when it started to become an issue. If we agreed that, the order of the day is for us to just share anyhow, and that's okay with everybody as of then, and the moment it starts to become an issue, you need to put it in writing. So at any point in time when you come to the knowledge that this is a problem, I think the next best time is to put it right here in writing and agree. Now, what happens is business does not belong to you. You are a stakeholder in that business. You cannot decide that, I would take this for myself. The CAMA, the Corporate Affairs, CAMA 2020 is the governing body for all companies, and it provides that all directors need to be transparent in how they govern the affairs of the company, right? So you can't just unilaterally make a decision. It has to be open to everybody. You have to disclose any interests you have, financial interests or business interests you have in any of the entities that with all the other stakeholders in your business in the entity. So no, you can't just do things by yourself unilaterally. Yeah. And yes, the next best time to take out the agreement is now. Yeah. But now that you know, it's the best time.
I want to bring in Tokbe at this point. So when this happens now, where we have a situation where a certain percentage has been shared, I want to understand the difference here. As a manager, where is this percentage even coming from? Is it from music sales? Is it from event bookings? Is it from royalties? What do they have rights to or not?
Thank you very much. So everything is dependent on the agreement between parties. Yeah. There are certain agreements that they would all agree that management receives just monies made from shows. Okay. And there are some, the management or the manager would have to receive 360. Everything is also dependent on the type of contribution or the level of contribution of the supposed, manager or management, yeah? So the percentages of management must always be subject to the type of agreement, entered into. There are two words here that over time, with my own experience, I've realized that these two words usually cause problem, particularly in agreements, and particularly if the agreement is such that the parties in the agreement do not really understand, how these things work. And these words are net and gross, yeah? Everyone is saying, oh, this person is receiving 40%. That 40% might be that. The 40% might be gross. The 40% might be net. When it is net, it means certain expenses, have been recouped. Okay. When it is gross, it means, from the main source, yeah? So at the end of the day, I don't talk on certain things when, the clearer
the facts
or when
are not
the
clear.
Yeah, when the facts are
not
100%,
presented.
All
right, Tokbe, sorry to cut you in there, but thank you very much for your thoughts today. Tokbe Salami is an entertainment lawyer. Mojoyin Oluwa Adekunle, she is a legal and business strategist. Thank you so much for your thoughts and helping us all understand a bit of what has been going on with the entertainment business and music business in this case, particularly with the P-Square drama as the backdrop here in Nigeria. You've been watching Rubbin Minds. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I'm Osato Edokbayi. We'll see you soon.